Good morning. We have another episode of Instigating Women and Friends, and Liz and I are really happy to have Wanjiku as a guest. We think you're probably a little tired of hearing all from us, and so we wanted to offer a little bit more insight as how women progress and how just women are today. Given this pandemic, it's been tough on everyone. So Wanjiku, if you would please introduce yourself, we're so glad to have you.
Awesome. Thank you both for having me. Wanjiku Kamau, joining you all from the lovely city of New York.
All right.
Yes. Go to New York. So yeah, all good things. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Great. So tell us your role. Tell us how you got there, just overview of you.
Sure, absolutely. So I've worked at Intel for about 16 years now, and my current role is director of mainstream desktop. And people keep asking, what is that? Well, I just got the job, so I'm still figuring it out, but it's an awesome opportunity to kind of take all the skills that I have and experience that I've had and kind of put it into a business, from beginning to end. And so kind of exciting. And I know people are thinking desktops, like, do we still have those? Believe it or not, it's actually a very thriving and growing business. So it's good to be able to kind of like look at something that's actually growing and figuring out how can I even make it better. So that's the job that I do. So nice. All good things.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
And tell us a little about your trajectory, like where you started, what you thought you wanted to do, and some of your pivotal experiences along the way.
Oh, wow. It has changed so many times. So I think all the way through college, I thought I wanted to be president of the United States, and everything that I was doing was in process of that. So political science undergrad, I planned to go to law school. I also was planning to join the United States Air Force. And if I've learned anything, everything you plan changes because you don't have control over very much. So ended up going to kind of a second tier law school, did it for about 2 years. It was not my thing. And then I've always been pretty good at numbers. So I was working at a smaller tech company and was just kind of doing entry-level work and kind of rose over a few years. And I had a really good boss who was supportive and said, listen, this company's a little too small for you. You've got aspirations, go find a bigger company. And, once upon a time, monster.com was the place to find jobs. And so I submitted for a job on there, and Intel called a couple of days later and had an opportunity to get in our treasury department, and did that role for about 5 years, and then kind of bounced around the organization and, really wanted to find finance roles that kind of played to my strengths, but also gave me opportunities to grow. And so did a number of roles throughout the year, supporting sales and marketing, our engineering teams, spent 9 years all in Sacramento, and then eventually relocated to Arizona for an opportunity to become a manager and run my own little small team. And so spent about 5 years there, and was really great. And in that time, got supported from my company to go back to school. And so I joined the executive MBA program at Arizona State, go Sun Devils, and had a really great opportunity to kind of, get back to school, but more specifically, like, how do I use everything that I've learned so far? How do I couple that with, the frameworks and the learning and the readings in class? And that was just a phenomenal experience for me. And I think gave me an opportunity to go, if I'm on a trajectory and there's things and aspirations that I'm trying to achieve, how do I put it together like a real plan that's achievable? And what are some of those milestones? And I think, the MBA program, I always said, hey, I had over, 15 years of work experience, but the MBA program essentially took me an opportunity to go, how do I take everything I've learned and put it in a way that I'm speaking the same language as my peers and executives and other people? So I always joked that I learned business through, kind of slang, and now I actually learned it properly like Rosetta Stone. So the MBA was, I think, a very pivotal point in my career. And it also opened the doors for me to take a step out of faith and leave finance and go find opportunities outside of the organization that I grew up in. And so I joined what we call, the business unit operations, and took on a chief of staff role that immediately just morphed and became a very strategic role, and had an opportunity to help set the direction of our, $12 billion business, which has been phenomenal. And, fun fact, my boss earlier this year retired, and he and the rest of the team said, hey, the only person we can think of that would be a really great interim general manager was me. And so it was an amazing opportunity to kind of step into those shoes and take on some of those responsibilities and learn and grow. And then I have a new boss now who's come in and she's restructured the organization. And now I'm, transitioning out of that chief of staff role into a role where I get to be a director and kind of own a business from end to end like a general manager. So very exciting, very exciting. And I'm not sure what's next because it's, all very new, but definitely see myself continuing to grow and getting into that C-suite space. And we'll see what that'll look like over the next few years. So, yeah.
Wow. What I'm listening to your story and I'm just kind of amazed about how many times you were able to pivot, and not just pivot, but capitalize on opportunity that
Absolutely.
came along with uncertainty.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where does that, and I think you also told us last time we talked that you moved to New York like right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Valentine's Day of 2020. What a time.
So that's just, this is what we work with our clients on all the time, is being able to step into that, to the unknown, and tolerate it and see the opportunity. So like, how did you do, where does that come from? It seems like you've done it time and time again in your career, in your life. Like, how did you develop that?
Well, I heard her say she had faith this last time, but I'm thinking you've had faith all along.
Had to have. My family, I grew up in the church, right? I consider myself a believer. And I am one where I'm like, there's got to be a plan beyond just me. There just has to be. This world just seems too big not to. So there are times when I do step out on faith and I'm like, not sure what I'm doing, but I will say this, I have faith in myself. I'm a pretty smart cookie. And so if there's things that I don't know, I'll figure it out. I'm an extrovert by nature. I'm very social, but I'm not afraid to ask for help. I will always call on people. If people give me an inch, I will take a mile and try to get as much as I can, but also give back and share. And so, if I think of those times where I was making a pivot or I was transitioning into something that was unknown, I kind of was like, well, I'm me. And as long as I'm at the table and I've got my network and I've got people and resources and, friends, somehow I've always been able to navigate and, knock on wood. So far, I haven't had any big failures. So I think that's good. And honestly, like the world is scary. There's a lot of unknowns out there. And I just don't want to be one of those people who never took that chance, right? Who never tried, because there's sometimes I've made a step and I was like, maybe not the best job, right? Or, made a move and was like, I don't know if that was quite the right fit, but there's lessons learned, and I think all of those are just steps along the way in our journey. So.
Yeah, it's a really, it's a powerful mindset that you've been able to cultivate within yourself. I think you mentioned going to law school for 2 years and being like, this is not my thing. And I think about law school and people I know who've gone to law school. There's so much messaging. It's like basically like, we're going to tear down your psyche, right? And so, right, we're going to just like take you down to your brass tacks. And yet you had a mindset of like, okay, this isn't my thing, so I'm going to go find out what my thing is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that people in general, but particularly women, struggle with, because whether it's the cultural messaging that we get or the opportunities that the education system doesn't see for us, right? And so that's just such a powerful mindset that you've been able to cultivate throughout your life and your career. And I'm just curious, like, have there been moments where there have been people that have helped you continue that mindset? Or is it all just within you and your faith?
Not at all. Not at all. So first and foremost, my mother. Interesting enough, I just got back from Nairobi a few days ago, maybe 5 days. I can't even count anymore. But gotten a chance to go visit my mother and some of the rest of my family. And she's originally from Kenya. She left at a very young age, went to the UK, got a job, multiple jobs to help take care of her family back home. brought some of her younger siblings with her so that they could get an education, right? And so she was very, very, set on, she left at 19. I mean, that's a very young age to leave a country and to go somewhere else you've never been to, right? And this is in the 60s, so we didn't have the technology we have today. But my mother always knew she wanted more for herself, and she wanted more for the hope for her kids someday. And so she eventually migrated to this country and, met my dad and had us. But she was always just very determined, right? They didn't, the US didn't acknowledge her credentials. So she had to start with just getting a GED, and then, to show that she could finish high school, then, went to night school and put herself through, community college, and then getting a bachelor's degree, and then eventually getting a master's degree, right? And so I look at someone like that, who along the way was like, hey, we you can't settle for less, right? And it's okay to say no. It's okay to change your mind, right? But it's good to have goals and to strive for something. And so when you've got someone like that in the house, and at that time, my mom was a single parent, so she's just raising us kids and working 2 jobs and going to school. I think you just kind of look at that without her even saying it, of like, I don't want to be just simple, right? I don't want my life to not mean much, because I've seen the sacrifices that my family made just for the opportunity for me to sit here with both of you today, right? And so when you've got that and you've got people around you like that, I think it's motivating, right? And it's like, okay, I can strive for more. And, I don't know if maybe I didn't have the best sense of self, but I mean, I was student body president in high school. I was like, I'm going to be president one day. You guys will be at my inauguration. And things have changed over time. But I think just having those goals, it's like, oh, well, if I fell short and only became a US senator, that's good, or an ambassador somewhere. So definitely not all within myself. I had amazing, strong women around me growing up, not just my mother, my godmother, some of her friends, my aunts. And all of them, to this day, I had some time with some of them last week in Kenya, and they were just like, Wanjiku, you got to keep going, and it's not a matter of trying to achieve a certain, title, right? But it's more like, we want you to be the best of whatever you want to be doing, and we will support you, and we're here for you. We're praying for you. Keep going. And so when you've got, the army behind you, right? It's like, no, I'm, if there's something I'm doing that I'm not liking, like law school, it's okay to say I'm going to change my mind, and I'm going to go spend some time figuring it out, right? And I think part of that was I was paying for it too. So when you're writing those checks yourself, you're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, right? So,
yeah. Wow. You're making me wonder, like, what messages are my kids taking from me right now?
And oftentimes it's not the things you're saying, right? It's the things you're watching. I mean, I saw my mom, it's so funny. I played sports as a kid, didn't realize my mom had to work another job just to get the money to pay for the soccer dues and the uniform, right? Some of those things I didn't see right away. And then I eventually saw it going, to be able to give us a little bit of privilege, she was willing to sacrifice, and did it time and time again. And so it was one of those things, like you end up watching things more than what people say. And I will say I didn't always respect and value it as a kid, but I definitely do as an adult, and very, very thankful.
Yeah. It seems like you're a very creative person. So think out 5 years. What do you imagine you're going to create next?
Create. I don't know, because I'm one of those. I have like a million ideas. I maybe execute 2. So I'm not quite sure. The last few years, I do like working, and I've enjoyed my career to date. But part of me kind of goes, how can I take everything I've done and do something different 5-10 years from now, or even in the next year? I don't know. And the pandemic, very unfortunate situation, but also gave me some time to kind of think about, what do I want my legacy to be, right? And I say this all the time, of my job title will not be the first line of my obituary, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's really made me kind of go, okay, giving back has always been something that I've been very passionate about. I've been getting connected with, local organizations here, just even in my neighborhood. But I'm trying to think, how do I take, my background in learning and, everything that I grew up knowing, pairing that with my experiences, and is there something unique that Wanjiku Kamau can go do, and what would that look like? So I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet, to be honest, Gwen. That's a good question. I'll have to come back to you, but I don't know. I've got some ideas rolling around, but I'm just trying to figure out what is it that I can leave a little stamp on that is unique to me. So
yeah.
I'll tell you what, I am gonna have Gwen send me the raw footage of this, and I'm gonna make my girls sit and watch it. And I seriously, when I think about the mindset that you have cultivated for yourself all at every stage so far, I think like that's your superpower that you can offer to young women, because that, to me, that's one of the biggest threats to our society and our community, is the lack of self-belief, and that so many young women in our society experience. And I just feel like that's an opportunity for you to go and like inject that. It's like your juice. Like,
I'm infectious. I don't know.
yes, yes,
yes, you
I'm
are
always like, is
contagious.
that a good? Is that good?
Yes,
it's
you're
huge.
contagious in a good way. I was going to say, I think you're already building your legacy.
Yeah. I'm trying. I mean, and I'm, it's interesting. I don't know if you both face this, but there are things that naturally come to you that you don't necessarily realize are your superpowers, right? I'm a connector. I like building safe spaces, especially for women. When I lived in Arizona, I would pull together this wine and cheese night. And at first people were like, wine, cheese, what? But in reality, it was a way to connect people. I had people from grad school, I had people from work, I had people from my church community, people from my, young social professionals network. And, it was about once every 6 weeks or so, but all of a sudden you get a safe space for people, especially in someone's home. It's very disarming, right? And, most people like wine or cheese. So, it was a good opportunity, but people started talking and building networks and friendships. And it was great to see. And some of the conversations varied from, mother-in-laws to children to investments to freezing your eggs. I mean, just, you never knew what was going to come up. And, it was just a very relaxed space. But when I left Arizona, there's quite a few people going like, who's going to do the wine and cheese? Like, what happens to the party? And so it was, it's one of those things, like, I just did it because I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't necessarily see what it was really creating until, it was time to go. So,
yeah, generally women are known as connectors. But even men are writing books about how we shouldn't obsess about problems and do's, our to-do list. Instead, we should obsess about our who's. Who do we know? Who can we connect with? Who can we learn from? And I'm thinking, I think that's right. I think that's right. And it's harder right now in a pandemic to think about connecting with people. And yet I'm able to connect with you and Liz, who I've never met in person.
Yes.
I'm able to connect with people from all over the world right now in ways I wouldn't have ever had otherwise. So what a gift this really is.
It is.
Well, I just want to say I'm a fan. Like, I want to keep watching what happens. I want to see what you do next.
All right.
It's going to start with my own girls. I'm going to have them sit and watch this. And I do think that is, you have a superpower of being a connector, but you also have a superpower of having cultivated this mindset, which of course came, as you said, from a very powerful example all around you. But there's such a dearth of it in our young women.
Yeah. I will say this, I wore my vote shirt on purpose today. I had the opportunity to go hear Stacey Abrams speak a couple of days ago. And it's interesting how you're talking about your girls, because for me, it was like a reminder, like, here's someone who I admire, a hero of mine. And she was talking about, just do something, right? You don't need to go save the whole world. You don't need to save democracy, but just do one thing. And I walked out of there going, okay, what's going to be my one thing, right? And so, yeah, I think sometimes, the mindset is strong, but you get into your ways and you get into routine, and it's like, well, I'm working and doing this and family and all the things. And it's all of a sudden, it's like 6 months went by. Did I accomplish anything, or am I just rolling with the punches? And I do try to set little goals for myself of, okay, November's around the corner. What's one thing I can accomplish next month, right? And it doesn't need to be anything massive. But I'm a big person on accountability. So I've got some great accountability partners, and I will share with them, I'm thinking about doing this. And then, they'll do the little reminders, right? So
Yeah. So you might not be on the presidential podium, or you might someday.
I don't
But
know. I think she,
definitely see you on a platform. And this is the beginning of your platform to share your message about the mindset and connections and what you can do, not only to inspire young women, but inspire women in general.
Yes.
Inspire people who might not have confidence right now or might be suffering right now, just that need that little boost and injection that you are so able to describe, emulate, and role model.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been great.
As we close out, any other tip or advice you want to offer?
I wish I'm a one tip, huh? I don't know. I think it's just like keep doing your best and just keep trying, right? I think sometimes people look at me like, oh, Wanjiku lives such a great life. I'm like, do you know how many days I don't even want to get out of bed? Like if the dog does not jump on me, I probably would stay a little longer. It's like, do I clean up a mess or do I get up and walk him? So I think sometimes people look and think things are better than they are. And it's like, I'm human. I try. There are days I have zero energy for work, but I'll do like 5 jumping jacks. I'll get on a call and I'm like, okay, smile, fake it till you make it. Right. So there are days where it's hard and I get it, but I guess my one tidbit is just keep trying. Just keep trying your best.
Moving forward, one step at a time.
Absolutely.
Great.
it's amazing
Well, it's
how often
nice
showing up. Sorry, I was just gonna say it's amazing how often just showing up is an intervention.
It really is. It absolutely is. It is. Yeah, for sure.
Well, hope you both have a great weekend.
You too. It was great to talk to you.
You too. Thanks so much.
Cheers.